The finals start on Thursday, June 1st this year, and I think there's a couple of really exciting matchups because first and foremost, Bam Adebayo's post-ups were disgusting in the Eastern Conference Finals. I never want to see that again. He was averaging up 0.2 points per post possession, which is, for reference, about a third of the league average in points per possession, so hideous. But one thing Bam exceeded in was what he's always succeeded in the playoffs, and that has been his defense. Nikola Jokic has run through the NBA. The postseason, no one's really been able to stop him. But I think the most interesting matchup is Bam Adebayo guarding Nikola, where he gives up 2 inches and probably 15 to 25 pounds. But in the mid-range area, he's probably the most versatile defender in the Eastern Conference, and a lot like Draymond Green. Not as quick in his reactions, but they have similar skill sets. And Nikola Jokic historically has struggled with bigs that are good post defenders, but are also able to switch, hedge ball screens, and don't necessarily have a weakness you can pinpoint. Do you think Bam can hold Jokic to like 48% shooting here in the finals? Because that's what Rudy Gobert did to him in the first round. And I think looking at this matchup, looking at the series, the most important matchup will be how well Bam is able to defend Nikola.
Yeah, first I would say, well, on paper or on face value, it's Bam versus Nikola. It's more like Bam with Eric Spoelstra, a genius in the film room behind him too, dialing up all those zone coverages, mix and matching. Honestly, they're not even like true like what you would use the name for zone coverage. We just rotate so freaking well, and it's like outstanding. It's so beautiful to watch, honestly, how we are able to like, you know how awesome it is as a fan of a team when you look like you're giving up an open shot and they're doing the ball movement thing where you're like, oh, here comes, they're kicking it around to an open shooter, and your team is able to rotate so well and stymie that offensive. It's just so awesome. I love that feeling. I just wanted to say that. But I think, I don't know, honestly, what I think, John, because I have no idea what's going to happen, how it's going to look, because Nikola has faced a very different, array of defenders this playoffs. Cat, Rudy,
Okay.
Ayton, and then AD, Rui, and LeBron, kind of, right? And they all presented their own different things. I really don't. It's going to be a very interesting. I think you hit the nail on the head that's going to be the keyest matchup. I would imagine Spo, Bam, and Jimmy and everybody else for that matter are in the film room right now, studying the hell out of the Denver Nuggets, getting ready. They only have 2.5 days basically to get ready.
Yeah.
That is going to be a very interesting matchup that I do not have an answer for because
This is where losing PJ Tucker really hurts, because if you look back at the film on January 28th of 2023, there was a game where Joel Embiid won the MVP with 3 months left in the regular season. And what the 76ers did was put PJ on Nikola, which then allowed Joel Embiid to roam and defend the rim. So you had this very unique double team, but it's actually very simple. You put a good post defender in Jokic, try to get him off his spots, and you don't let him spin baseline, because when you do, no help. I mean, he's got the rim, he's going to get an easy look every single time.
Yeah.
But if you get him to spin when he's out the post, off of his right shoulder, well, now he's going to be going to the middle of the floor where there's a lot of help. That is where I say to myself, maybe Eric Spoelstra tries Kevin Love to start the games.
See, that was just what I was going to ask you. So, like, because what's the starting lineup going to be? Because obviously he's implemented Caleb Martin in the last couple games because this kid has just been a spark plug, and it's like, screw that. We don't need him on the bench. We need him to start the goddamn game off making those shots and his physical plays. So do you take him out of the start? Do you take Caleb out of the starting lineup and put in?
I do, to match Bruce Brown off the bench, because the Nuggets, look, they're 6 or 7 guys deep. If
Mhm.
Christian Brown's going to play minutes, some days they may, if they're lucky, be 8 guys deep. Bruce Brown's going to run transition as Nuggets will, and so will Caleb Martin. And I think having Kevin Love in the starting lineup with his 3-point shooting in a pick and pop game, having that draw Nikola Jokic away from the paint,
Mhm.
out of the rim, well, I actually think while the Miami Heat defensively may not have an option, a solution to guard Nikola Jokic, I do think offensively, with their actions, whether it's pick and roll, give and go DHOs, or simply post splits with Bam. And the post split, it's one thing the Warriors have always done with Draymond. It's you have Duncan Robinson and Kyle Lowry. Duncan, great cutter, whole cuts to the rim, dives hard. That's the first look for Bam. The second is Cal will pop out for a three. And that type of frenzy will open up something usually. That will take Nikola Jokic away from the paint with
Mhm.
Bam in the mid range. Now, this postseason, he hasn't shot particularly well from mid range, as we
Mhm.
saw. I mean, his floater game was atrocious versus the Celtics. But Kevin Love has that pick and pop element that we've seen with teams like the Warriors and the Suns. When
Mhm.
you can pull Nikola Jokic out into space, it opens up for the Nuggets Pandora's box because the point of their defense is making sure Nikola Jokic is in the paint with everybody else. MPJ,
Mhm.
Gordon,
Mhm.
Jamal. He's a really good off ball help defender. All
Mhm.
of those guys are the resistance. And the issue with Denver, it's not getting to the rim. Well, actually, it is. Sorry. The issue with Denver is not scoring out at the rim. It's actually getting there.
Mhm.
So if you can beat your guy off the dribble and there's some chaos where maybe Aaron Gordon's rotating and Jokic isn't there as last line of defense, well, now the Miami Heat has something they can rely on offensively. And I think that is less iso ball because Aaron Gordon is a tremendous matchup for Jimmy Butler. And I think it's a lot more actions involving Bam where he initiates. And you can see more Kevin Love pick and roll with one of their guards, whether it's Gabe, Kyle, or Jimmy.
Yeah, and so here's the thing that was going through my mind too is so we have two guys on the bench that haven't seen really any playing time for the right reasons. They're not. I don't think they're ready, but there's something about these two guys. We have two 7-footers on the bench, right? You have Yurt Seven and Orlando Robinson, if I'm not mistaken. Does Yurt Seven see any time? Do you think that they can maybe put him in for 2-3 minutes, use up some fouls, create some trouble? Because here's the one thing I would say about that too, and playing Cody Zeller as well. There's no way you can have Bam and either Yurt Seven or Zeller on the court at the same time because that's two non-shooters, and that's just not going to work offensively. Um, so like you have to have K Love with one of those other guys that we're mentioning, and obviously you don't want to take Bam off the court if he can play 40 plus minutes. You want that from him. So, like I said, it's just going to be so interesting. Like if Yurt Seven sees some time just to throw in a 7-footer to bother Jokic.
Mm.
Yeah,
I,
I hope not to see Cody's. I gotta be honest. There's one guy on the Miami Heat. I'm not a fan of Cody Zeller.
yeah, he definitely should not be getting a single minute. But the issue is that Yurtseven last year was really good as a rebounder, and you think, that would be great for Jokic in the offensive glass, and then also just like boxing them out and letting someone else get the board. But the issue was he only played 9 games this season because he had a stress reaction in his ankle,
Yeah.
and he's probably not going to be in the shape to play in a track race. And these are two teams that want to get out in space, and I think he will lag behind while also not being able to open up the floor. So, could we see it? Very slim chance, and I think the best way to go would be leaning on Kevin Love a lot more in this series because, like we saw in the first round of the playoffs versus Giannis and Brook Lopez,
I think
in
that's
certain
the blueprint.
stretches in the Knicks series, what he can unlock for you in the half court is going to be the difference maker.
I think that's the blueprint right there. The Buck series because they play with two big men. I know Giannis was injured, but when he was on the court, Giannis and Brook Lopez, they play with two big men, and we saw Bam and Kevin Love. And you got Aaron Gordon and Jokic, and hell, even freaking MPJ is 6'10". So you need the big bodies. I do want to say this. I hope and I think we are going to see more Highsmith. He's shown a lot. Game 6, I know there were a lot of it was garbage time, but even in Game 7, he comes out and he just fights. He just scraps. And I love that.